Hello, everyone. Happy Friday, and I can't believe it is May 1st already. It seems like yesterday was September to me. I can't believe you guys are pretty much, finishing up your first year here in the Latin school. And, what's incredible is that, we're in the situation we did. I could have never imagined that, a couple of months ago. But I hope all of you have a safe weekend and everyone stays safe. So you don't have any homework over the weekend. If you did not get the Chapter 10 Section 2 worksheet done or any other assignment, please make sure you get that done to me by 3 p.m. today. If you can take out your notes, we are going to pick up where we left off yesterday, talking about Charlemagne's empire, right? And Charlemagne as king, right? And talk about kind of what his empire was like, because he is arguably the most successful Frankish king, and he increased the size of the Frankish kingdom almost as large as what the western part of the Roman Empire was, during the days of like Constantine the Great. All right, so Charlemagne becomes the strongest leader in Western Europe, and at that time, in the late 700s, 799, 790, no one would try to undermine Charlemagne. No one would try to wage war against Charlemagne. Everyone knew how successful he was in battle. All right, his forces, destroyed a lot of other Germanic clans, such as like the Saxons and Lombards, and maybe some other Viking clans he conquered, and he kept close ties between the church and his government, and any act against the church was disloyalty to him. For example, he enacted a series of laws which entailed a very brutal cultural subjugation. For example, to enforce church laws, he said that there was a penalty for any Saxon, so anyone who was not Frankish, caught eating meat during Lent, was death. If there was death for cremating the dead in accordance with certain rites, and there was death for rejecting baptism if you were a Saxon, or basically a non-Frankish, or a non-Frankish Germanic person. And those laws were very harsh. And there were some people that resisted him, but they knew that he would follow through on those punishments. So he used very harsh measures to kind of protect the church and its beliefs and practices. Today, I'm sure there's Catholics out there that do eat meat on certain occasions during Lent when they're not supposed to, and there are people that reject baptism out there, unfortunately. All right, but Charlemagne met with the Pope at that time, and they are going to create a new empire that becomes known as the New Christian, use a different color here, New Christian Roman Empire in Western Europe. Okay, and the Pope at that time was Leo III. And Leo III kind of wanted to reward Charlemagne for all of his successes and basically his expansionist gestures in the name of the Christian faith. So he earns the title Charlemagne, which means Charles the Great. And because Charlemagne took the obligation so seriously to spread Christianity, even though he used harsh tactics, the Pope Leo the third, decides to crown Charlemagne not just king, but he declares him emperor. All right, Charlemagne will be crowned the new Holy Roman Emperor by Pope Leo the Third. Okay, and you should know that Pope Leo the Third was the Pope that crowned Charlemagne. Leo the Third. And he was crowned on Christmas Day. And Charlemagne was kind of caught off guard. He was invited to Mass in St. Peter's Basilica on Christmas, and he did not know that there was going to be a big celebration in which he's crowned new Holy Roman Emperor. And Charlemagne at first was not too happy about this because by the Pope crowning Charlemagne, politically, it looks as if the Pope is more powerful than Charlemagne, because in order for someone to be crowned emperor, the Pope would have to do it. So Charlemagne was not really happy about that, but he, respected the Pope's religious position and, kind of accepted the crown. Charlemagne was a very talented diplomat and able administrator over the vast land that he covered, and he basically makes an attempt to try and bring back the glory days of the long-dead Roman Empire. And he was successful during his time, during his 50 years as the king / new Roman emperor. I'll give you a couple seconds to get this slide down, and then we'll move on to the next slide. So his empire, his kingdom, this large Frankish kingdom, becomes a Christian empire. And within this Christian empire, Charlemagne set up law courts to enforce Christian practices, as I mentioned on the last slide, and also to make sure his laws, political laws, were obeyed and people were following the laws of the Franks. To kind of run these courts, Charlemagne couldn't do it himself, so he set up counts. Counts were basically nobles that enforced laws. They were like judges, and oftentimes Charlemagne would send royal messengers out all throughout the empire to check on these counts and make sure that they are not doing anything illegal and basically building power to the point where they would try and overthrow Charlemagne and his family from their position. So Charlemagne established a capital. The capital of his empire was Aachen, right, and that was the capital. Okay, and Aachen is a city in Germany today. All right, it's kind of like on the border of Germany and France, but it's in Germany, and that's where Charlemagne presided. That's where his palace was, and eventually, he would travel outside his capital and journey throughout the empire with advisors, visiting home palaces, kind of addressing any concerns going on within his empire. All right. Make sure you get everything down on this slide. Some important things to know that Aachen was the capital of his new Christian Roman Empire. You don't need to know it's in Germany today. It's a French word, but it's in Germany. This city was really established by Charlemagne, a grand palace. The church was there. We'll talk a little bit more about those things on the next slide. There's a cathedral. All right, magnificent architecture that you could even still go see today. Moving on to the next slide. So Charlemagne built a cathedral called the Palatine Chapel in Aachen. All right, the Aachen Cathedral suffered very little damage even in the 2 world wars. But one thing that Charlemagne really wanted from his cathedral and in some other buildings throughout Aachen is he wanted there to be education. Charlemagne really encouraged learning, especially from churches and monasteries, to start schools. He really pushed for churches and monasteries to start schools so that way everyone learned religion along with the other subjects. Very similar to how some of you probably came to the Latin school from a parish school. I know a lot of parishes don't have Catholic elementary schools anymore, but that was a very common practice within his empire. Monasteries and churches would have schools, and they usually had the best schools for a young boy or girl to attend. And one of the most well-known scholars or like professors was Alcuin, all right, who worked for Charlemagne, and he started a school in one of the palaces that Charlemagne had built, all right, to teach and to train children. And children in church schools and monasteries, parish schools, and in monasteries, and the scholar Alcuin enforced that people study religion. All right, Latin. Everyone had to study Latin, much like how you guys will have to do that here in a Latin school in both 7th and 8th grade. Music, works of literature that date back to like days of the Sumerian civilization, and arithmetic, which is math. They studied history, but they studied history and literature. They studied history in Latin and a little bit in religion. They did study science as well, but much more of an emphasis on arts, music, and literature within these schools. And arts are going to prosper more during this time period of the early Middle Ages under Charlemagne. Eventually, that does die out after Charlemagne's time as king because other kings did not enforce it as much. But Charlemagne is going to help bring back arts and architectural development and music and other aspects of artistic style. All right. This is the last slide for today. So know Charlemagne encouraged learning. Know that he pushed churches and monasteries to start schools. And know the subjects, right, that they studied religion, Latin, music, literature, and arithmetic during this time. I'll leave this slide up for a couple more seconds for you guys to get down. And after you have everything down, you are done for this week. And I hope all of you have a great weekend. And get outside and enjoy the warm weather we have coming to us Saturday and Sunday. We will conference on Monday. Monday we may do a Kahoot again. All right, so please be ready for that. And if you're missing any work, make sure you get that back to me. You can always email me if you're unsure what you have not submitted. And I hope all of you have a great weekend. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.